So, let's say you're a student taking your first Western literature class, and all is going well and fine until the professor starts asking these questions about the great dread dinosaurs of literature that maybe you haven't gotten around to reading because they're really, really long. Maybe you know that Captain Ahab, from Hell's Heart stabs at thee, and, there's a whale.
Huh?
And you know that Les Mis is like a popular musical, and then the people wave the flags, and there's a revolution, but not that revolution, like not the one with the guillotines, and then there's War and Peace. Well, long. Oh boy, it is long. Why is a bear being tied to a policeman in this really long book? And maybe you ask yourself, why have I not read these books? Has anyone actually read these books? They are widely agreed to be big, important books after all. And this begs the question, what makes a book important? And who even decided what's important in the first place? Literary critics, writers, philosophers, bloggers all have tried to tackle where and why and how an author may strike such lightning in a bottle that their work enters the pantheon of classical literature. Why this book is required reading in high school where other books are lost to history. To try and sum up this historical process in a humble 6-minute internet video is nigh on impossible. But hey, we're gonna try. There are lots of books that are trashed, unappreciated, or simply not read early on in their publication and only come into popularity years later. Moby Dick is a famous example of this. Author Herman Melville died in obscurity, believing his opus forgotten. But in 1916, a popular contemporary novelist, Carl Van Doren, began to sing its praises publicly. The novel caught on with a more appreciative New York literary scene, and 100 years later, we're still memeing about Moby Dick. Several decades later, another New York literary trendsetter, Arthur Meisner, championed a little-known novel about awful rich people as a classic of 20th century American fiction. Eventually, enough English professors agreed, and now all high school students have to read The Great Gatsby, great American novel. But not all very important books go unappreciated in their day. Victor Hugo was already a huge celebrity when he wrote Les Miserables, which not only was a sensation upon release, it has never been out of print. So too was War and Peace, which enjoyed massive success upon publication and made Tolstoy, according to his contemporary Goncharov, the true lion of Russian literature. So what do these books have in common? Note that all of the above examples are heavily tied to themes of national and cultural identity, be it American, French, or Russian. They've also been deemed important by established writers, critics, and scholars, the intellectual elite, which brings us to the literary canon. In the 18th century, people began to use the term canon to refer informally to famous writers as a group. But in contrast to the biblical canon and the canon of saints, the literary canon was never an official list of officially recognized writers or books. Unless you think that the literary canon was initially meant to be read by the masses, well, nah. That's the thing about canons. Who is excluded is at least as important as who is included. So who decided what is important in the Western literary canon? Well, historically, it's been old white men. Usually authors or academics at learning institutions that during the 19th century only admitted young white men and taught books by drag queens. Just kidding, they were mostly books by white men. According to University of Michigan professor of English Jan Stritz, some scholars assert that writing has traditionally been seen as something defined by the dominant culture as a white male activity. So, in recent decades, there has been more skepticism about how the Western literary canon was constructed. That is not to say that big, portentous books like War and Peace or Moby Dick are not important or influential, but that someone had to decide that they were important and influential, and everyone else had to go, yeah, that sounds legit. With that said, defenders of the traditional Western canon, like Harold Bloom in his best-selling book, The Western Canon, argue that canon formation takes place as great writers respond in their writing to the works of their predecessors, and dismiss criticism of the canon as the school of resentment. Yikes. Fortunately, more diverse writers are slowly being added to the canon, writers like Virginia Woolf, James Baldwin, and Richard Wright. It goes without saying that the world has changed immeasurably over the last 50 years, let alone the last 3 centuries since the old boys club sat down and told us what was worthwhile. Our day-to-day lives, our technology, our understanding of people outside of our own limited worldview has changed. And with that, so too have the types of voices that now get published and now get elevated. This is the great American read. And while it's not to say that Moby Dick or Les Miserables or War and Peace don't contain universal truths or are not worth the time to visit, it is also to say that we are a diverse country filled with much more diverse literature than you were encouraged to read in high school. So I posit that what is important is less what history tells you is important, but what inspires you to want to keep reading in the first place. So go on and read. Lose yourself in something that speaks to you, whether it's towards your innate curiosity about a subject, or to your sense of fun that just wants something to go with a beach chair and a red cup of sangria, or just because, hey, it's got robots, and robots are okay. PBS Digital Studios is conducting its annual audience survey. This survey is one of the most important projects we do every year because it helps us understand who you are and what you like and what you don't like. Want more episodes of It's Lit? Take the survey and let us know. 25 random participants will receive an awesome PBS DS t-shirt.